In this topic, we discuss what is an ATO model work definition. This screenshot shows the Edit Work Definition Details page. You can see a visual representation of operations, items, and resources. You can also see a visual representation of a primary item structure. An ATO model work definition defines the manufacturing process to build any of the resulting configured items. It consists of operations, items, and resources. In the configured item fulfillment flow, the configured item work order is created dynamically based on the primary ATO model work definition, that is, the work definition that has a production priority of 1. This next screenshot shows how that on the Edit Work Definition Details page, you have the visibility to an ATO model multi-level item structure. You can expand option classes to view the options. You can also expand standard item phantoms to view the components that make up the phantoms. However, you cannot expand child ATO models. Initially, when no operation item assignments have been made, the round count badge is shown only for a leaf node. It is not shown for a parent node. The round count badge indicates the assigned quantity over the component total quantity. The count on the square badge indicates the number of components under a parent. The square badge is not displayed for a leaf node. This screenshot depicts the options-dependent details region on the Edit Operations page. The fields are explained as follows. In an ATO model work definition, you can define an operation either as mandatory or option-dependent. A mandatory operation always is included in the configured item work order. An option-dependent operation is included in the configured item work order if the optional component that are assigned to the operations are selected in the configuration or if the criteria as defined in the applicability rule are met. The applicability rule field displays the definition of the rule if one is defined. You can specify a planning percentage for an option-dependent operation. The planning percentage represents the percentage of sales orders that is expected to have the optional component selected. This percentage is applied when planning plans resource capacity requirements to satisfy a demand forecast of the parent model. The planning percentage for a mandatory option is always defined as 100%. An ATO model work definition must use the primary item structure of the model. This screenshot shows that the ATO model multi-level item structure has been expanded. Visual Information Navigator expands the ATO model only one branch at a time. As seen, since YKOC1 is expanded, you can no longer view the siblings of YKOC1. YKOC1 has YKOC3 and YKOC4 as its children. However, since YKOC3 is also expanded, you can no longer view YKOC4. You do have the ability and flexibility to assign any component from any level to an operation. This is governed by a couple of simple business rules. The first rule is that if you assign the parent, then you cannot assign its children. The second rule is that if you already have assigned children, you can still assign the parent, however, the system will delete the children assignments. This means for an option class, you can choose whether to assign the option class or the options. Similarly, for a standard item phantom, you can choose whether to assign the parent phantom or the components. If you assign an option class to an option-dependent operation, then the operation is included in the configured item work order if any of the options under the option class are selected. You must assign the entire component quantity to an operation. You cannot update or split the quantity to multiple operations. After you assign a component to an operation, the count badge turns into a checkmark icon. If you mouse over the checkmark icon, you can view the operation sequence to which the component is assigned to. This screenshot shows the planning percentage field and the optional checkbox, which are operation item attributes that are specific to ATO models. Except for the supply type attribute, all other operation item attributes of an ATO model work definition are referenced from product model. That is why you cannot update these attributes in the UI. If the value of these attributes is changed in the product model, the change is automatically synced to the impacted work definitions by the process item structure changes to work definition scheduled process. You also can't assign ad hoc items, which are existing items that are not components of the ATO model item structure. In our upcoming topic, we'll discuss applicability rule. So let's go ahead and move over there. In this topic, we discuss what is an applicability rule. The screenshot depicts a rule that Operation 21 Test Rear HD Camera is applicable only if the option Rear HD Camera is selected. You can assign an applicability rule to an option-dependent operation. It means that the operation must be included in the configured item work order only if the rule criteria are met. To create an applicability rule, you can either do one of the following. Drag and drop the item or transactional item attributes card to the rule text region, or perform the insert into rule text via a right-click action. After you drag and drop or insert the rule text, the application displays the component hierarchy of the item or transactional item attribute in the rule text. In this example, the component hierarchy is AS49000C, CM65011, CM65002, which indicates the model, option class, and optional component. You should assign only optional components or an applicability rule to an option-dependent operation. If you assign both, then the applicability rule is not evaluated. This screenshot shows that a transactional item attribute called Edition exists for the Vario 7500C model. You can select from the following options: Premium or Standard. You can view the multi-level item structure of an ATO model in the applicability rule user interface. However, only the optional components are displayed. Current and future effective components and transactional item attributes appear based on the work definition as of date. From the first level of components, you can expand the option classes to view the lower level optional components. If you have defined transactional item attributes, then they appear as child nodes of the component, and expanding the transactional item attribute node shows the attribute values. The transactional item attributes that applicability rules used are defined in Product Hub for an item class with application scope configuration matching. Because transactional item attributes are associated with an item class, all items that belong to the item class inherit the transactional item attributes. Based on the item class setup, you can define transactional item attributes for the top-level ATO model, option classes, optional components, or child ATO models. You can define an applicability rule item attributes with either numeric or string data type, as long as the associated value sets have a validation type of either independent or subset. This screenshot shows an error that results from omitting an operator in one or more expressions within a rule. For numeric attributes, the valid operators include equal to, not equal, less than or equal to, greater than, and greater than or equal. For string attributes, the valid operators are equal to, not equal to, starts with, ends with, contains, and does not contain. You can combine item and transactional item attributes in a rule and build complex expression using AND. As an example, you can create the following rule: if the rear HD camera is selected and the addition selected equals premium. The system automatically displays the component hierarchy transactional item attributes in the rule text when you create a rule using or the contextual action. For the rule example shown, the rule text displays the following: item equals AS49000C, CM65011, CM6, and AS49000C transactional attribute or the addition equals premium. The rule is validated to ensure and understand and process it. If the validation fails, then an appropriate error message is displayed. You must correct the error and save the rule. Our next section will segue into the topic operation item assignments. Let's move on. In this brief topic, we discuss how to export operation item assignments. This screenshot shows export operation item assignments. A complete indented view of the multi-level item structures of the ATO model is displayed. A couple of critical pieces of information on the Excel file are the assignment status and assigned operation. Assignment status is either incomplete, explicit, or implicit. An explicit assignment status shows to which operation a component is. An implicit assignment status applies to the children when their parent is directly assigned to an operation. Incomplete and complete assignment status is system derived. In a parent-child scenario, if you have assigned all the children, then the assignment status for the parent is complete. But if you haven't assigned all the children, then the parent is incomplete. You can quickly find out whether or not there is pending work by looking at the assignment status at the top-level ATO model. If it is complete, you will still have pending work in terms of operation item assignments. If it is complete, then it means you have full item assignments. Our next build-on topic will discuss calculating manufacturing lead times for an ATO. Let's move right into that topic. In this brief topic, we discuss how to calculate manufacturing lead time for an ATO model. This screenshot shows the Calculate Manufacturing Lead Time page with the Include ATO Model option selected. After you complete the ATO model work definition, you can optionally submit the same schedule process that calculates standard item manufacturing lead times to calculate the ATO model lead time. To ensure that you set the Include ATO Model parameter to Yes, the process updates the fixed, variable, and processing lead times in the item master. Manufacturing doesn't support configured item manufacturing lead time calculation. The application copies the ATO model lead time to the configured item lead times during the configured item creation process. ATO model lead times might be highly inflated. Consider updating the configured item lead time manually in the item master. You can enter more realistic manufacturing history. In our next topic, we'll discuss the ATO model work definition report. Let's go ahead and get started. In this topic, we discuss what is the ATO model work definition report. This screenshot shows the work definition report, which is most useful to help verify that you have set up the work definition correctly. It presents the complete view of a work definition grouped by operations. For each operation, you can view the assignments along with their attributes. When you print the report using the schedule process, ensure that the Assemble to Order Model Attributes parameter is set to Yes. You will then be able to view operations specific to an ATO model work definition, such as option dependent, planning percent, and applicability rule. For the operation items, you can view whether a component is an optional component and if the planning percentage for it is defined as well. If you set the Assemble to Order component hierarchy parameter to Yes, then the component hierarchy information is definition report. A component hierarchy is the relative path of the item node to the top-level ATO model node. The delimiter is the component hierarchy of YK option 21 in this screenshot is YK-ATO10, YK-OC2, YK-OP21. It says that YK-OP21 is under YK-OC2 and YK-OC2 is under YK-ATO10. This information is particularly useful because a given component can reside at different levels in an ATO model item structure. If you reprint the report from which the work definition interface exists, then the Assemble to Order Model Attributes parameter and the Assemble to Order Component Hierarchy parameters are defaulted to Yes. In the same screenshot, ATO-specific fields are also highlighted. Optional, the planning percent, which is for the operation item, the applicability rule, dependent, and the planning percent for operations. In our next topic, we'll discuss a configured item work order definition. Let's move that way. In this topic, we discuss what is a configured item work order definition. A configured item work definition is created dynamically based on the primary ATO model work definition, selected options, item attributes. The work definition header is created based on the base ATO model work definition header. All the mandatory operations, mandatory components, and related resources are included. Based on the options and transactional item attributes that you select during the configuration process, it includes the corresponding option-dependent operations along with the optional components and related resources. The application also explodes standard items with supply type as phantom under the ATO model and includes the components that make up the item structure. Configured item work definition is not stored. You can't search for configured item work definitions on the user interface. The order is then created based on the configured item work definition. The build and whip attribute for the configure item must be set to yes in order to allow the work order creation. When the work order is completed, the reservation is transferred to Oracle Fusion Inventory Management. This screenshot depicts configured item work definition process flow. You can pause the video to briefly note the work definitions and also note the flow and the relationships between them. This screenshot depicts the UI page named Complete with Details for Process 001-30. It represents the product train stop in the flow. The transactional item attributes that the configured item work order and execution user interfaces displayed are defined in Product Hub for an item class with application scope, configuration matching, and execution. The configuration transactional attributes region appears on the page only if you select a transactional item attribute value during the configuration process. If the transactional item is translatable, then the translated value appears on the page. You can view the transactional item attributes in the following places.